thanks everybody for checking on for the latest chapter of On the Offense. I think this is number 25 or something like that in the last couple of years. So I was just looking back at the notes from all the other ones, and today, obviously, some of you have been on the call for a couple of minutes. More people will be signing in, but today I particularly love this one because Louise White and I have known each other for a very long time, going back to the days of telemarketing and direct mail, that kind of part of, doing that stuff at scale. And we've done panels together in the past at various organizations and things like that. Always, Louise has always been a powerhouse and has been at the center of, the incisive success and the agribusiness success, which I think Rory's on the call. So, some of the most spectacular successes in our industry or profession, Louise has been in the center at. So first of all, Louise, thank you. Congratulations on your official Minister Without Portfolio title, as of just recently, for those who are joining. And she's in the middle of a thrilling project right now. So I don't know if that'll come up, but OTO is or On the Offense is sort of designed to look at, strategies for success. That's the mandate for On the Offense. And Louise brings about 50 different interesting perspectives on strategy for specialized content and media companies. But I think, given her background, what excited me about doing this session today is doing it at speed and pace. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on. Again, 20, 22, 23 minutes of sort of discussion between the two of us, but either on the chat or raise your hand. That leaves the rest of the session for open discussion. So Louise, thank you for doing this. And I maybe just start out, because in the earlier discussion we were talking about the excitement of working with the A team or whatever. And as I said, you've been part of some of the most successful information industry businesses. So including working with some Rory, who's on the call, and other people who were, just astounding success stories. When you and I talked, you had some really nice things to say about that experience as in your career. Would you mind starting with that, because it's so positive and helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, David, and thank you very much for inviting me to do this. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, we talked, and one of the most important things that ever happened to me was that I worked with some incredibly brilliant people, and I include Rory in that, and also Tim, who ran Excisive, who was my boss for many years. And the one thing that they shared, which I think was quite unique, because I've been involved with lots of other different publishing companies, was absolute clarity of vision and an absolute laser-like focus of what was the point of the business. And certainly coming into the business that I'm currently working in, they didn't have that. And it really shows. And so people like Rory, people like Tim knew every second of every day where they were trying to get to, what the end point was, what the exit was, and exactly how they wanted to get there. And from an outsider, you could say it looked a bit ruthless, but it is the opposite of ruthless. It is clarity and vision, and that is the most motivating thing to work for if you work for a business. And I know that deeply because I've just gone into a business where there was none of that, and the difference that having that has given all the people that work there has been really spectacular.
It sounds, I know, like sometimes just as a shorthand, those of us on this call will talk about sort of a private equity approach to the business as opposed to a founder approach, and it's not quite that clear, because there's some definite crossover. There's certainly enough private equity firms that seem to be muddling around, and I have no idea what their strategy is. But when you talk about that clarity of, I'll use the sort of the multiples oriented approach. Maybe you can say two things to say. One, you talked a lot about in our setup call about just the pace of change, and maybe could you comment on that first, and then second, when you're in that quote multiples approach or private equity involved approach, what's different than say the rest of us who are, like Ed Coburn said at the setup, or who are wandering around doing things incorrectly and going backwards half the time? So pace and focus, just talk a little bit more about that if you could.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't like working for private equity. And I always thoroughly enjoyed it because of that focus. So what private equity care about at the end of the day, most of the time, is an exit. And what they care about is the multiple that you can achieve on exit. And that absolutely levels the playing field for everyone in the business. So I think Victoria, who's on the call, she and I worked together at Incisive, and we were the only women on the board. I'm still the only woman on the board, actually. It's a theme of my life. But what matters to private equity is the numbers, is are you delivering against the strategy? Do you get the strategy, and are you adding value to that strategy? And that is the clearest possible way to have a meritocracy in a business. And it's actually quite difficult, I think, to achieve that if you don't have that laser-like focus, because often, you know, seniority promotion can be based on length of service, whether you're friends with the CEO, all sorts of things, and having some very clear metrics which you live or die by, and the whole board and the whole senior management team are completely aligned on, is very freeing and very motivating. And the pace of change is something that I think actually most companies struggle with. Even Incisive would struggle with it, and Brief Media, Agri Briefing as well, is because quite often you inherit a load of legacy stuff. You've got systems and structures and peoples that will defend till their dying breath what they do and why they do it and why it's important. And what I'm finding at SIFT is that I am able, because of my job and because of the way that I came into the business as a non-exec, then as a consultant, now as a strategy person, is that I can strip away all of that and bring everything back to clarity and focus and simplicity, and thinking not about silos and the way things have been done before, but what does good look like? What does value look like? How do you get the best multiple for the business? And you work back from there. And that's the theme that's run through working with private equity, working with people like Rory and Tim, is that you start there and work backwards. You don't start with what you have and work and try and force it towards that goal. It's much easier to do it the other way around.
There's so many ancillaries to what you just said. But could you put some numbers to the pace question? And then I want to talk about the second part of your answer, because I really think some of your perspectives on that are unique and worthwhile. So like we just went through a major training thing, or consulting sort of evolution thing, and it took us almost a year and a half to plan. And we're 6 months into implementing, but it's definitely, I would say we got an 18-month implementation timeline. Lots of pieces are working, but it's still going. You've worked at a 1/10 of that speed, it feels like to me. So could you, like 2 months, we're going to change things kind of. Could you maybe just talk about that a little?
Yeah, so I joined the business in November last year as a non-exec. And became apparent after a couple of meetings that they needed me to do a bit more than that. And the thing that became very apparent, because of what I've told the business, and by hiring Collingwood and working alongside those, the stuff that I'm telling SIFT to do is None of it's clever, none of it's unique. It's very simple, and it's what anybody sensible would have told them. The reason that the pace is fast, specifically now, and the reason they're listening to me when they didn't listen to other people telling them the same thing, if we're brutally honest, is because they were desperate. It's because the business was at a very dangerous point where it was having serious cash flow problems, and they'd come to the realization that doing the same thing we'd always done, like, how's that working out for you? Because it's not working. So I came in with and it's a wonderful remit to come in with, to be able to say, what you currently do does not work. And as a business, you're a market leader by some metric in the market that you're in, and you're managing to mess that up. I would have sworn normally, I swear in the board meeting, managing to mess that up. And that's some trick.
Yeah.
And because I was an external person, brought in as an NED, brought in to be an agent provocateur, brought in to sort of speak to truth, really. That's the imperative to get something, to do something, was there because they had no choice. Yeah, that's always a good starting point. You've got a burning platform, you've got no choice. But what's actually, so, I've spent really 3 months really in the business, spending an awful lot of time getting the correct senior management team in place, getting the correct board in place, because neither of those things, again, if it's not working, you have to turn the lens at the board, and you have to turn the lens at the senior management team, and it's their fault. It's who runs the business? You run the business, and if it's not working, it's your responsibility. And so I spent a long time, 3 months, it's not a really long time, but sorting those problems out, because it would have been impossible for the business to move forward without actually making some really hard decisions and making them quite quickly.
It seems unlikely that a founder like me, for instance, would be able to, first of all, you've got the situation where, okay, this is revolution number 32, and you look around the management team and they're all yawning and looking at their cell phones. So it sounds like for the crisis may have been the best thing, because it forces people to bring in someone from the outside, maybe is that kind of essential thing?
It does. It sharpens the mind. And the nice thing about the business is that they are not defensive, mostly, about what's gone on in the past. And to some extent, it's pointless dissecting it. It's a reset of the business. Is about saying, some of the metrics about your business are very true. You're a market leader. You have these things going for you. The way that's been managed has been ineffective. Like, there's no point spending 3 months discussing what went wrong, what could we do slightly better. So I spent 3 months working with the key people in the senior management team, the MD and the CEO, to give them space. That's the thing that I think I've brought most into SIFT, is to give the two most senior people space and belief and support, and push really hard that we work with Collingwood, which is another layer of external, way better than me, external support. But to give them space to stop working on the business, stop working in the business and start working on the business. Because I think what I've discovered at SIFT, and I think it's quite typical of small businesses, is that everybody, the word I hate, Wes is on the call, he'll laugh, leaning in to solve every problem, running around fighting fires, everybody helping everybody, nobody running around like headless chickens, really, lurching from crisis to crisis. And I was very clear that that's not working, is it? That's not working at all. So it's giving those people the time and the space and the belief, really, that there is another way of doing this. That you don't have to cling on to the old ways of doing things. It's not a criticism of how things have gone before. It is let's just accept that it didn't work. There are luckily some brilliant minds out there, and Collingwood I'm going to reference a lot because they are some of the brightest minds in the business, who have done this before on repeat. And I've done this before on repeat, and it's not rocket science, and it's eminently achievable. And seeing those people being able to step back from the coal face,
Yeah.
network with people, network with their peers, just take a few steps back, has
Okay.
been really transformative.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a lot in there, Louise, but I think this, like, when all of us on this call look at our change plans, like 3 months to adjust the governance and leadership, like if you take that as a model, that's why I kind of called this session rapid transformation. I think for those of us who have been in the business, our own businesses for a long time, it's really hard to conceive of, okay, it's 1 August right now. By November 1st, I'm going to have a different leadership and governance structure, and unless we're about to go, bankrupt, in which case, then yeah, you can make some pretty quick changes. But that's kind of what excites me about what you're doing right now and what you've done in the past with Tim and with Rory, et cetera, that kind of energy. So do you want to maybe I know
Yeah,
that out of that there are a lot of things that are different, including I just have to mention that you said in the setup call, the gender issue of the who on the golf course is no longer important. It's just, did you hit the multiples? And another thing you said that I just loved is when you're under that kind of pressure, it's much easier to say no to a good idea if it doesn't have an immediate financial impact. So those are 2 starting things. Go wherever you want with that one, but
yeah. So to get things done quickly, the best thing to do is stop doing almost everything you've been doing before. And you can only do that if you've got a really clear vision. So, and I use, Swift is a great example. You've got a lot of people in the business. They're all busy. Everybody's busy. They're all doing the wrong. They're not all doing the wrong things. Lots of people are not doing things that fit to an exit or to a multiple or to value creation in the business. It's just busy. So, the 3 months that I've spent as Minister without a portfolio before I became an employee was getting the senior people to understand the truth of that without being defensive about it. And that's not an easy job, and it's quite a time-consuming job in terms of one-to-one time with people, mentoring people, taking them on a bit of a journey from saying, just because I'm saying rip up everything that you know doesn't mean I'm saying you're a bad person. I'm just helping you understand that there is a way to do this that is probably better. And the pace. I come from Incisive, which was possibly one of the most commercial places you could ever have worked.
Yeah.
And the pace there was big, was dramatic. Get on with it, just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it. And I found it really bizarre coming into business where that imperative wasn't there. That very, very commercial, very, very profit focused, very, very salesy environment wasn't there at all. And it's taken 3 months really to set the team up for success, is to take them on that journey from defensiveness through to hope, from fear through to hope. And a huge part of what I did right from the beginning was say we need Collingwood, but we don't just need Collingwood because you had Collingwood before and it didn't work because you didn't listen to them. You cherry picked the things you wanted to do and you avoided all the really hard decisions. You just did the easy bits. And that is an absolute waste of using someone like Collingwood. So I've spent a lot of time getting the business ready so that when we have Collingwood in the business who can work at serious pace with a whole playbook about how you do things and how you change things. Normally, it would take them maybe 3 to 6 months to get the business to where it is the day that they walked into the business.
Yep.
So my job was in that 3 months was to set the business, specifically the senior management team, but also the next level of people underneath that, so that when Colin would come in, we already talked their language. That when they
Yeah.
start to say, we need to track this, and you need to look at average revenue per employee and average order value and retention and no one's sitting there going, what the hell are they talking about? It's, you feel like you're talking to peer, they feel like they're talking to a peer rather than a scary grey suited person that's telling them what to do. And that is, I think, why things are now moving at a pace that I'm so used to, and that people at SIFT were not used to at all. It's because I didn't just chuck it at them. I've got everybody teed up to kind of go, right, and this is how we, like, the world is going to change. And one of the things that will change is that you'll do stuff really quickly, but because you only be doing one thing, you're not trying to do 15 things badly. You're doing one thing or two things brilliantly, and that is it. Everything else
maybe just comment, because on some, because I would say we were probably on the slower end and maybe some cherry picking personally, but because of the work we've done recently, literally something happened yesterday in our market, and because we were looking at the metrics of the business differently than we were a year ago, we essentially our second largest customer acquired our 14th largest customer, and that news came out yesterday morning, and by the end of the day we have a webinar scheduled with the two CEOs on next Wednesday. But it's because the metrics they're reporting, it showed up immediately, so I mean, that's thrilling to me. And the discussion yesterday among everyone is, okay, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do, here's the like the combination of the two accounts is about 180,000 US. So there was like immediate discussion, okay, how do we get the merged account to 250, and that all happened within 12 hours. A year ago I couldn't have done that. So is that the kind of energy you're sort of saying you worked in that energy your whole career, Louise? So
yeah, it's, do you know what it is? It's decision making. So and Wes will laugh because he's heard me say this 100 times, but my mantra has been, and it sounds a bit brutal, but I don't care. It's not a fucking democracy. Like, where we're going and what we're doing is not up for discussion with every single person who works at the company. Like, there are perhaps 3 people who get to decide what we're doing and how we're getting there, and everybody else comes with us. And that is really important. And I learned that from working with great CEOs, is that, and I've seen the opposite. I've seen where decisions are camels designed by committees, where every single, and I'll bang on about this a lot, but you have to understand the difference between opinion and expertise, and only people with expertise about strategy and about the shape of a business are allowed to make those decisions. Like, what can happen is that everybody has an equal voice, which is lovely and feels very collegiate and lovely. However, with the best will in the world, you end up with a half-baked version of something, and it is then very easy for people to interpret that how they decide it should be interpreted. And that's where you get people going off and doing side projects or busy fools. It's very Timism, but people who are brilliant people working their guts out, but on stuff that is not actually going to help, and in some cases is not profitable, and in some cases is worse than that, is very unprofitable, which drags the whole business down. So to get speed, you can't be collegiate, you have to be quite dictatorial. But as long as you're open about the fact you're doing that, I think if you're very honest with the business, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. One of the things that has gone wrong in the past is every single person had a say in what happened, and from now on in, only the experts, and the experts, I suppose, being the board, but the board also have experts advising them. So there is a check and a balance to me. There's a check and a balance to the board. And those people are Collingwood, who are more expert than I will ever be. And that's, I think, one of the things that allows genuine pace, genuine transformation, is an acknowledgement that this isn't a team sport in terms of decision making. How we get there is a team sport, but the decision is not. And that the board has, this is why I like private equity, because private equity hold boards to account in a very, very stark way. And I think the best boards are held to account as well. And that's what I think is really important, is that there should be, if you're senior management of a business, it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be a nice thing that you happen to get to because you worked in the industry for 20 years. You know, it means something. It means you're responsible. It means you're accountable. It means the buck stops with you. And part of understanding that the buck stops with you is knowing when you might make bad decisions and making sure there is another mechanism by which you sense check those decisions. Because it's being the boss is lovely, isn't it? Everyone loves it. But we're not, in fact, no one's infallible and nobody has all the answers. And the best senior management teams I've worked with knew that and did not wear the responsibility lightly. And board meetings, I think, should be a little bit terrifying. You know, it's where you have to prove that you've done what you said you were going to do. They're not a nice little chat. It's not a group of blokes getting together having a lovely conversation. It's get stuff done. Have we done it? What are we doing next month? Let's get on with it.
Well, you sort of talked about the energy around when it's successful, like the themes are clear. You know, in BVR's case, we've come out of the exercise with, like white spacing to our top accounts, so you can quickly as a group look at any decision and see whether it fits into the metric of where we're trying to get to. That simplicity is just gorgeous and breathtaking, I think. But you're also I think saying there's kind of an expectation if you're 3 months into a plan and you're not meeting one of the metrics, that could be a career ending event. Kind of, is it that kind of urgency you're talking about a little bit?
I mean, a collective responsibility to do this at pace is really important. And you're right, it's that you have lots of fantastic moments along the way where people start to believe that this is real. And I think one of the reasons why strategy, such a horrible word, falters, is because it stays in the boardroom. It's a very dry thing. Everyone does a 3-year strategy plan. It's a 25-page slide deck that gets presented to the entire company. Everybody goes, what, who cares? And goes back to doing what they've always done. But they go back to doing what they've always done, because it doesn't mean anything. It's completely pointless. And the way that you make strategy real is do it, is one of them. And do it quickly, and do it in a way that people feel the change and feel the difference in their jobs immediately. And then it stops being, my much used term is, strategy is too important to leave in the boardroom. People think that means you just do all hands meetings to tell people what the strategy is. That's missing the point, I think, very much. You have to start making it real and making people live and breathe it, and see the vision start to happen, like in a month. In a month of having been told this is what the vision is. You can only do that kind of presentation if you've already done 95% of the work. That's a big tip, is if you're going to tell the company what the new strategy is, make sure you've already done most of it, so that the next thing people see is it happening. So that you don't wait for another 3 months and then do another strategy presentation. Because again, I've sat in a lot of all hands meetings in my life, even when I knew what the point of it was, it can get lost in translation. And I think Neil, who worked with Roy at Agri-Briefing, was a brilliant example that I kind of borrow from his style, which he was just very human and very honest and very direct. And he answered difficult questions. And the other thing that he did, and that Tim used to do as well, and that Roy did, is that you set yourself up for success, so that you don't do an all hands meeting, but that being the first time that everybody's ever heard what you're talking about? Because
You work through him.
well, you wouldn't do that in a meeting. Like I find it really weird that people sort of forget that. You wouldn't, if you were running a really important board meeting and you were trying to get everyone to agree with something, you wouldn't go to the board meeting having never spoken to any of those people about what you were going to say. You'd tee them up, you'd make sure you got your friends on side, you'd dealt with any questions. And yet people do all hands meetings without doing any of that prep, and then wonder why everybody walks away very confused or very demotivated about what it was that people just talked about. And I suppose that's one of the lessons that I've learned from working with really great leaders, is they don't leave it to chance.
Yeah.
You can be charismatic and a great presenter, and that's lovely, but you could be effective, and that's a bit more legwork, but it is much, much better to do it that way.
Maybe because I think that's another thing, especially on the founder side. There's some very good friends in Renewed who I suspect come off, who I love and have been lifelong friends, but I would guess that in their in-house management meetings, they come off a little bit as potentially schizophrenic, like, okay, we're chasing AI now. Oh no, it's Wednesday. Now we're doing margins. It's all about margins. It's, and through no fault, but it's just, and if cash flow gets in there, then it's just total chaos. It's like, just completely random. But you're maybe I'm trying to, because I think you're doing something really well here, and I'm trying to get at, like, so you're the ED, and you've got a key manager that's got to run part of the new program. Like, what's that one-on-one meeting like? It's like, you got to stop doing what you're doing. I don't know, maybe you have a better way to approach it, but the getting to the point where when you get to the boardroom meeting, it's like, okay, check, all good, we're on plan, kind of thing. Maybe, and please, at this point, anyone who wants to chime in with their own experiences or questions, raise your hand or hit the chat. But yeah, maybe just talk about that a little bit, Louise.
Yeah, I'll give a really nice example, which is the editorial director at SIFT. Because of part of my job when I worked at Incisive, we bought lots of companies, and as part of the integration team, one of the things you had to do very quickly was make an assessment of all the people that you just bought and work out whether they're any good or not. And the editorial director at SIFT, I can't help myself. I do that with everyone I meet now. Sorry, everyone who works with me, but I do. They all know I do it. And I knew she was good. Like one of the potential to be exceptionally good. But she had been, put in a box that said, this is what you do, this is what you do. You take over from someone who's very good at their job, and you replicate it, and you do it 10% better, 5% better, and that's the limit of your job. And you can be brilliant at it and be 10% better than the person that did it before you, but you're not doing what is needed. And so she and I have been on a really, it's not, I talk about fast pace of change. I don't just sit down with somebody once and say everything you believe is wrong, do it this way. It's been over the course of maybe 3 or 4 months that she and I have gently, sometimes a bit more strongly, but with an awful lot of time, of kind of getting her to understand that if she changes how that she thinks about the world. So it's a bit like, stop thinking about yourself as an editorial director, start thinking about yourself as somebody who connects buyers and sellers, who has relationships with customers, and then we make money out of those relationships with customers. And she's ambitious, she wants to be commercial, and it's kind of, I had to do a lot of reassuring her that there is always going to be church and state, and I'll fight to my dying breath to keep that. But there is a way of thinking which allows you to be commercial and strategic and still maintain that. And it didn't happen overnight. And I keep getting feedback or keep being introduced to people as, this is Louise, she's really uncomfortable to work with. because it's not supposed to be easy. Like if it was easy, you could employ anyone to do this. Like if we could take 2 years to gently guide people in the right direction, then that's lovely. But the business wasn't in that position, and so I had a lot of imperative to start these kind of conversations with, okay, we can't pay the wages if we carry on doing what we're doing, so literally going to have to do something different. But taking her on a journey and kind of opening her eyes to there's being a different way of doing this, so that now when we're starting to go, and now you need to do this, now we need to restructure this, now it means that you need to work across this, it all happens really quickly because all the legwork has been done. So it's not a case, you know, I kind of joke about it, but not being a democracy and not collegiate. You have to have another side to you. I can't just tell people what to do or they wouldn't do it. It's a kind of persuasion, a thing, but with some pace. And one of the things that I'm very strong on, I strongly believe in, is when you've got great people, make them superb. Like that's the job. And show them what being superb at something looks like. And the biggest lesson I've learned over the years, and the one we've applied at SIFT, is they were the classic what you described. Actually, every board meeting, there was another idea. Let's do this. Let's do user revenue. Let's do this for the. Let's do this. And so the first thing was to say, let's do two things. They brought me in because I know a lot about subscriptions. One of the first decisions was, you're not going to do subscriptions, which was a shock to them, because it was absolutely lunacy, absolutely lunacy. But then, okay, well, but you could do these two things brilliantly. And then when you start to take people who have been in a world where they were told one thing one month, told one thing another month, and you start to say to them, we're just going to do these two things brilliantly. And if you and your department can help us do these two things brilliantly, your job's going to get way more interesting and way more motivating and way more satisfying, and you will genuinely make a difference. And that's how now we're really turning the screw. Like, stuff is like, decisions feel, I'm sure, if you'd be looking on the outside, God, they're making a decision every 3 days, they're doing it. It's because for the last 3 to 6 months, those people have been brought on the journey, so that when we start to turn the screw and say, right, do it, they're like, yeah, I get it. Let's go with this. And so it looks quick, but there was a lot of prep work. And I think that's, you know, what it would be very disingenuous for me to come to any kind of meeting and say, yeah, you can do everything really in 3 months, 6 months.
Well, I think I hear something very different. For instance, the way I frequently, because I'm sort of a natural cheerleader, so I find myself saying to people, you're great, which, you know, when you look at it, it's absolutely useless. That doesn't help anybody get anywhere. But if you say, to meet the business plan or to meet the goals, you're a one in these two areas, I need you to do that. The other areas where we're all a number 5 or 6, like subscriptions in this case, no, we're not going to do that because we're not that great, and that's, so you're spectacular and you need to be spectacular in the areas you're spectacular at. I guess you said it much better than I did, but that's I think for all the senior, everybody on this call we're running businesses pretty much, you know, that's very powerful to me, Louise. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I did it. I mean, I was part of a leadership development program at Incisive, and one of the best things we did, that I found the best thing, was a proper 360 appraisal process, which was really rigorous and was very analytical. And the whole point of it was to say, most people score about 3 at everything. And I was like, I'm a 3, that's terrible. And the message was, that's fine, it doesn't matter, 3 is fine, 3 is acceptable. If you're below a 3, you need to look at it, because that's a problem, that's a fatal flaw. There are 3 things that you are in the high 4s, 5s at. You know, high 4s at, get to a 5 in those 3 things and forget all the 3s, because it's good enough And that was really powerful. And I sort of find myself using that analogy at SIF to say, as a business, stop doing the ones and the twos.
Yeah.
The stuff that's okay, we'll do it, but just get good at the stuff that you are already spectacular at. If you could get all of those things that you're naturally good at, even another 10% better, that's better than trying to be average at a little bit better at everything. And that does translate into, I suppose, business strategy, which is focus on things where your core strengths are and get if you got a little bit better at the things you're already good at, it's more powerful than getting decent at a load of stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of tends to land with people when I use that, because that's quite a human way of looking at the business and going, do you know what, it doesn't matter if we're rubbish at all these things, we can just stop doing them.
Yeah.
Like, just do the stuff you're good at, don't do the stuff you're bad at. and I look at the business of SIFT, and we're not there yet by any stretch of the imagination. There's still pockets of the business where you say, well, and what tends to happen as well is everyone says, oh, value multiples, they're such like horrible private equity type terms. But the thing you always have to remember is what drives value in a business is because it's good. Like, it's good revenue. It's better revenue than the other stuff, because it's repeatable and it's renewable. And one of the lessons at SIFT has been, you don't have to have subscription revenue to be a subscription business.
Yeah.
That's another one of our mantras. But you can run, like, when you run to value and you look at multiples, the revenue streams that are renewable are the ones that have the highest multiple, because they behave more like subscription revenue. And I think a lot of, well, SIFT is the example, had got fixated on the only way to get value was to have subscriptions, because everyone looks at Rory and goes, oh my god, he sold it for 28 times EBITDA. Like, we all want to do that. Everyone wants to do that. Like, Rory was playing in pricing markets. You're accountants. It's fundamentally different. They haven't got it's fundamentally different. But what you can do is run events, one event, and you can run your digital marketing, your sales effort, like a subscription business. And if you do that, that's where you get the same kind of multiples you get for a subscription business, because it's renewable and it's repeatable. And that clarity for SIFT has been, I think, the biggest driver for them, so that people understand that now and go, oh my goodness, so we can actually be a subscription business, and we don't have to go try and get 25,000 accountants all to give us 100 quid each. It's never going to happen. It's pointless, absolutely pointless effort. But what you can do is get a much smaller number of vendors to give you £1 million each to access those accountants,
and that may be what you're actually good at. So rather than trying to teach the whole organization to be good, it's something else it may not even yield any turnover, never mind margins or multiples.
And I think, getting, like, the editorial director is a great example. She talks like me, and I'm not saying I've made a mini me out of her, but she talks like me now. She understands it, and it changes the way you think as an editorial person if you understand that kind of when I talk about running to multiple, running to value. If you understand that it's because it's better revenue and it's repeatable revenue and it's renewable revenue, and it's growable revenue, suddenly that becomes like, you want to be part, like, she wants to be part of that. And Wes, who's on the call, is going to be so embarrassed about me talking about him in public, because I do it in front of the whole company a lot. But Wes is a marketing manager at SIFT, and I think Wes has been a tremendously important part of the transformation. He has what I understand of marketing is this. This is what I am marketing. I am marketing. My background's marketing. To me, this is marketing. It wasn't what it was like at SIFT. It was very campaign driven. It was very, very almost admin-y. And Wes has been on this journey with me and has stepped up and stepped up and stepped up and stepped up, and now absolutely gets this. And that's happened really quite quickly, but it's because the whole company's got a shared lexicon and a shared way of talking now, so that it's not just me and Wes versus the world, or it's not me and the editorial director versus the world. It's not me, the managing director. It's not pockets of people that talk like this. We all do. And
Yeah.
that's how you get trained quickly. What
Yeah.
feels like quickly is you put the legwork in to make sure everybody really gets it. And some of that it can't be done quickly, and it shouldn't be done quickly. But once you've got all of that in place, you can start to go like that, because
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
understands why we're doing it, and nobody tries to stop it. And that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're right um on the 45 minutes, which I there's about 500 more things we could continue to talk about, but Louise, I hope everyone on the call just appreciates what I appreciate about always talking to you, is the urgency, the pace, the the enthusiasm about a shared mission and getting better at what you're good at. That's just, I mean, I would say maybe this on the offense session, I hope for everyone, is just sort of a shot in the arm. Like, go back, keep going, be strong, so um Lindsay just threw up a survey, but I'd also say, Louise, I think you're intending to sort of, I hope you sort of stay connected to the renewed community going forward, because it's helpful to all of us. I actually think we're trying to get together. Robin's on the call. He's doing a lot of organizing in London, but I think we're talking about trying to get a kind of a roundtable going at the December holiday get together in London. So but to me, this kind of discussion is the best thing about Renewed, because we can all, it's a place we can all come in, get our own renewed energy, I guess. And you're a perfect example, Louise. You're just, I mean, I feel like I'm a better person after I get off discussions with you. So thank you. Yeah. Really sincere thanks for everything, as long as I've known you. So I'll sign off to, again, just, Renewed's got a bunch of stuff going on in the fall. We've got another on the offense coming up in September with Greg Hart from PSMJ, which is sort of the opposite end of Louise. His approach has been just to stick to the knitting as a way to get through a difficult period in his business. So that one might be interesting too. And I don't know, Lindsay or Sue, if any of you have any last chime off things, but other than that, I would just say,
David, you did just get a question.
Yes, I just noticed from that's a good, okay. Wait a second, this call is going to go on for another half hour. Ayana, yeah. In fact, you want just, Louise, 2 minutes on that, because we're over, and we'll sign off and let everyone go. And then Ayana, Louise, maybe you can stay in touch about it. But as a founder, I'm thinking in terms of my CEO, Lucretia, who's got to deal with me all the time. Tell Lucretia what she should do here. So
yeah. Get you
in
away
2 minutes. In 2 minutes. You're used to going fast. Yeah.
Get you away from the business. Yeah. That, I mean, the founder of SIFT is a non-exec now, and I think that's a good place for a founder to be. It sounds awful, doesn't it? But I think one of the things that one of the best lessons, actually, I found, some of the best things a founder can do is learn how to step away from the business and give the reins to somebody else. And that's really, really, really hard, isn't it? It's really, really hard. But I'm going to use Piers from Collingwood at this, actually, because he and I were talking about this, about whether founders should remain as chairman, whether they should be non-execs. What if a founder does step away, what should they do? And he said that he runs Collingwood, and he said that he had sacked himself as chairman a couple of times because he realised he was doing what we accuse founders often of doing, which is do it my way. I've got an idea. Everyone, and because you're the founder and you're often, the person that everybody looks up to, everyone runs after the thing that you've told them to do. And the one thing I would say probably to people who have to work with, you know, people who found businesses are often very charismatic, very powerful, very, you know, engaged, and they know the market better than anyone who works in the business could ever know it, is to persuade them that there are other skills that are equally valuable in helping to run a business. And often what most founders want really, isn't it, is exit. You know, it's they want to make their millions and retire. So it's kind of being able to balance the desire to keep playing with the toy, the thing that I created, thinking that I know best it's, you know, it's a challenge, but I think you have to be quite honest with people and say, there are other things that people bring to the party that probably will never be how you would do it. And that's a good thing. Like, I do think that all the way through, people I've worked with who have been prepared to be challenged about everything they thought was true have been the best leaders by a long metric, who know they don't have the answers. And I think if you can work with a founder to say that's true of founders too, you know, it's true throughout the whole organization.
Yeah,
you need checks and balances, otherwise, I've seen it before. I saw it in Incisive. I've seen it at Sift. Is the founder would say, I want to do this, and everyone just does it, and that's not leadership. Yeah, that's being the boss. That's a very different thing. And I think you have to teach people how to disassociate having power and being able to get people to do things to a sense check is that the right thing to be doing?
well. That's a good answer, Louise. That was, I mean, it was a good answer. I won't say it affected me personally, and I'm not crying at this moment. So I assure you, I'm happy to hear this. So I think on the note of being a boss, versus being a leader, I don't think you could do any better than that. So maybe we should just say thank you everyone for attending today. That was just gorgeous, Louise. Thank you. And I wish you incredible luck with your new executive title.
Thank you. I've got to live up to it now.
Okay. I look forward to seeing all of you soon. Really nice. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.